The weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. I'm meteorologist Adam Epstein.
And I'm meteorologist Riley O'Connor.
All right, Riley, we're back in the saddle for another episode here. And the focus that we're going to start off with is snow or lack of snow in the Sierra. It's been a pretty dry stretch. We got a little bit over last night.
Yeah, a couple inches fell.
Yeah, you were looking at those totals, right? It was up to 4 inches. I think that was the highest total near Lake Tahoe.
Sugar Bowl, was it?
Yeah, I think it was Sugar Bowl, 4 inches of snow there.
Yeah.
Other locations, 1-2 inches of snow. Still wasn't much, so we're hoping for more. And we started off the season on a really good note, and then all of a sudden we got to January, and it's just been silent since. I think the last time it snowed was like January 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
So Donner Summit is reading 120 inches of snow, and there we have the Central Sierra Snow Lab, which a group of scientists actually live there over the winter, at least one of them in this little shack. And they take very detailed measurements, and they use these statistics for a number of reasons in academia and for the Department of Water Resources. 120 inches of snow.
Yeah.
Normal.
Kind of a fun job, I would say.
Yeah, right. I've heard some stories. I actually met the guy who was living there a couple years ago and how his wife wasn't very happy about it. But it's for winter, and you do a lot of shoveling if it's a good winter.
Right.
But we were above normal about 10, 15 days ago at Donner Summit. It was 13 days ago exactly. And in 13 days, we have fallen to 5 feet of snow behind normal. Can you believe that?
Yeah. It's kind of, it is. It's depressing to hear that. The only thing, I'm trying to, and even talking with, people up in the Palisades and some climatologists, really hoping that in the next couple of months, we have some good storms that come in with the moisture.
Right. Yeah. And everyone who's up in the Sierra, like working there for industry or has a shop that depends on winter recreation.
Yeah.
They're praying for snow, crossing their fingers, crossing their toes. There's just nothing we can do about it, which is, the sad part, but it's weather. A lot of people at home think we can.
Right? I find myself being nitpicky sometimes because when I'm looking at the models, you may be doing the same. High pressure, of course, is just right there. And I'm like, is it going to break down? It's so persistent.
Yeah. So if everyone's watching this at home, you might know we're referring to high pressure, but if not, it's a blocking mechanism. So it's like an invisible force field. And as long as it's sitting over California, just to the west, storms are not going to be able to get here. So look at our snowpack numbers. The black background is December 28th, a month ago. And statewide, we're at 76% of normal. Not ideal, but the season beginning early on was really low. So Christmas really did a wonder for us.
Yeah.
And then a month later, we're at 58% of normal. And you break it down between the northern, central, and southern Sierra, and all of them show the same story of us dropping off. It's sad to see.
It is. And it was interesting because I was talking to a couple of my friends that live back in the Midwest and the East Coast. A friend of mine lives in Boston, and she was so excited because of the storm that just came through and how much snow had happened. I think the U.S. was about 50% covered in snow now versus what it was 25%, a while back before this storm happened. And she was like, how's the ski season? How's it going out west? I was like, well, it's still going, but it's dry.
Right. Yeah. We're still here. There's a base of snow, right? So if you're thinking about skiing or snowboarding, there's snow out there, and it's been cold enough for the resorts who are capable to make snow. So you can ski, you can snowboard. It's just not on powder. And I think it's ironic when, northern Texas has more snow than us for most of January.
Right.
It's like insane.
I know.
But that was a huge winter storm that came through. And we're going to talk about winter precips in this Ask Adam, talk about the differences and what causes them in a second. Now I want to take a look towards the future. Let's see if anything's coming our way. And the answer is no, not in the short term, at least. So this is beyond our 7-day forecast, and that's what we focus on. Then we use the Climate Prediction Center, the specialists there, to tell us about patterns beyond those 7 days. This is the first week of February. Not just dry, but very likely to be drier than normal here in the West. because of that blocking high that you talked about.
Yeah. And it's when you think about, because you always associate the Pacific Northwest with being wet, especially this time, right?
Oh,
And so
yeah.
when you consistently see dry outlooks, it's a little concerning
Right.
for
Yeah.
sure.
It's definitely happened before where the blocking high prevents storms from coming to California,
Mhm.
but storms get right over the top of them and go into the Pacific Northwest.
Mhm.
But they're left out on this pattern as well. Like
Mhm.
storms are completely missing us. And we're falling into this pattern that we don't want to be in.
Mhm.
Statistically speaking, January is the wettest month of the year in Sacramento. And then February is the top 3. After that, you don't expect a ton of rain or snow, even though, of course, it can happen in March and even April.
Mhm.
But the bulk of our moisture comes in January, comes in February, and then also December, which just passed. I went a little bit out of order there. Man. So we've both lived in very snowy places. You coming from Minnesota, me coming from Maine. I'm just wondering, do you have a favorite snow story that comes to mind or an event that you forecasted or enjoyed, just lived through?
For me, it has to be probably when my first job was in Iowa, Sioux City, Iowa.
Okay.
So I moved from Los Angeles to Sioux City, Iowa, and I had, we didn't have a lot of snow in Southern California for a while. So I was very excited to be there. So it was the first winter and we had blizzard warnings and I was so pumped. I
Yeah.
was so excited for this. And for me, I think when I want snow, I do want the blizzard conditions. I like the wind. I like
100%.
the low visibilities. I like the action in it. I mean, I want safety, but
Sure.
it's just something about that whole snow globe effect. So that year, it would have been in 2010 is when it happened. It was just really incredible just to have it. And so I really enjoyed it. But I remember that. And I will have to say, I know we're going to talk about favorite precip type. Mine is grapple.
Okay, grapple. That's a good one too. And a lot of
Absolutely.
people may not know about that. But yeah, it's funny because you bring up blizzard conditions,
Mhm.
and that is exactly what I was thinking too. We have fog throughout the valley that limits visibility, but like that's not nearly as exciting as
It's not.
being in a blizzard. There's something so like majestic and
Mhm.
mystical about being stuck in a blizzard
Yeah.
and not being able to see that far in front of you.
Right.
So that was my
Not
favorite memory too in Maine.
maybe not driving on the roads, but
I know.
seeing from a distance, like walking outside and standing in front of, say, wherever you live, and then not seeing the end of the street because it's so snowy and the wind.
Yeah,
It's,
right.
it's
Those
really
conditions
it's cool.
are brutal. And there was just one day I remember in particular when I was working in Maine, I was in our weather vehicle as an SUV with decals and snow tires. And we were told to like go find the worst snow.
Mhm.
So I was just looking at the radar and we were driving into these bands of snow and blizzard conditions. And it was just wild. And we all of a sudden like came up out of like the mist of the snow
Mhm.
and saw a jackknife trailer
Mm.
on the road across it. And I smelled pizza. And I was like, this is so weird. And then as we got closer, you could see it was a Domino's truck. And it was, yep.
Did they give you a free pizza at least?
No, I think the driver was a little bit preoccupied with some other things.
It's probably,
All
yes.
right, let's talk about those precip types and what we get in winter in this week's edition of Ask Adam.
On the heels of a major winter storm in the United States, it's come to my attention that a lot of you don't know that there's a difference between freezing rain and sleet. So let's change that. This week's Ask Adam, I'm going to focus on winter precipitation types. And you might have heard at some point in your life, way back in the day, that 32 degrees Fahrenheit is a very important number. Below that, you get snow. Above that, you get rain. Yes and no. It's a little bit more complex than that. You have to think of temperature as a profile from the cloud all the way down to the ground. So that column is what will determine what type of precipitation you get. During the wintertime, you can assume that it's cold air up by the cloud. But when it comes to rain, it's warm air all the way down to the ground, so it stays liquid. When it comes to freezing rain, it's cold air just at the surface. So the liquid comes down until it comes into contact with something and it freezes. Walking, driving, flying becomes difficult to impossible. But ice is also heavy. So as it accretes, not accumulates, but accretes, grows on tree branches, trees, power lines, it weighs them down and stresses them to the point where they bend and crack. And that can cause those widespread power outages. Then you have sleet, which is a small wedge of warm air up above us, and then cold air that allows that liquid to partially
time for a
refreeze
quick
and it
reaction.
becomes an ice pellet. That accumulates the same way snow does. And finally, snow. That's a simple one.
Does it look
It's
weird
cold,
if I'm
below
looking
32
over
degrees
this
from the
because
cloud, all
it's
the
on
way
this
down
side?
to the
Okay.
ground for that entire column, so it remains frozen. So it comes down as good old-fashioned snow that you grew up maybe loving or hating. I don't know.
All right, Riley. So you mentioned grapple.
Mhm.
You want to quickly tell us why that's your favorite?
It's because you don't see it that often. That's the thing. And it reminds me of, first of all, it's just cool, right? You pick it up and it's light and it's just kind of fluffy. And it reminds me of the little Dippin' Dots.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So typically this is, so when grapple happens, I will take a little cup and I'll put a little chocolate, little cocoa in it. And I eat it as a snack.
Hopefully the air quality is
Guilty.
good that day. Okay.
Yeah, that's
I'm
probably
not
not the
advising
best
you.
thing to do. I'm
Like it just rained yesterday. You might notice your car is just like gross because
Yeah.
there's so much pollution in the
I'm
air.
not saying do
So
this.
be careful about that. All right, we'll be right back. One.
All right, welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. This week I talked with a local climatologist talking about our water year and what possibly to expect going forward.
Okay, here we go.
Thanks for joining us today on Atmospheric Insight. Today I have Dr. Michael Anderson, DWR state climatologist, talking about our water year so far and what to expect. Thanks for joining me today, Dr. Anderson.
Happy to be here.
So let's talk about this year so far with the water year. Now, we've had a great end to 2025. We're starting off on a dry note for 2026. What can you describe so far the current status of the state's major reservoirs so far? Are they filling up as expected, and how they compare to this time on a typical water year in the recent years?
Right. So, yeah, we got off to a fantastic start. Water year actually started on time in October, which was fantastic because that early rain really tamps down the fire danger, something that was missing last year. We had strong storm in November and again in December and right into New Year's, but then everything's gone quiet. All that said, our reservoirs are at 126% of average for this time of year, which is great. Those storms did allow reservoirs to recover storage they spent last summer and get up to a line called top of conservation. Now, this is the point in the reservoir where space above that line is kept to catch any floods that might come. So that part's usually empty and that fills with spring snowmelt. So we're doing really good, except now that we get snowpack. The storms turned out to have a freezing elevation around 7,000 feet. Southern Sierra, that's not a problem. Half the watershed's above 7,500 feet. So really good snow, and they were above average for a while. Northern Sierra is a different story. 95% of the watershed is below 7,500 feet. So not a whole lot of watershed to capture snow. So they got mostly rain. They were behind, and they've fallen. So today, the Northern Sierra only has about 50% of average of what they would expect for this time of year. So definitely needs some catch up there to be able to have a good spring runoff.
Right. Yeah. And hopes are that we'll have some good spring storms that will come in, or late winter, I should say, in early spring, that will help, with that. Even though we had great storms recently, have you seen years where we have lagged in precipitation, but we've caught up in, say in the spring or the early summer? It's not too late yet, correct?
Correct. So we still have one more of the big three, December, January, and February, those 3 months on average, half our precip shows up. So even though January's been dry, there's still an opportunity for the third of the big three to come in and really catch things up.
That's good to know. At least we, have hope with that. Now, so with the possibility, of a dry spring, say we don't get the storms that we want, with the pattern, how is the department preparing for the possibility of that? Are there plans in place to adjust reservoir releases or conservation guidelines to protect water supplies?
Right. So we actually meet on a regular basis to talk about dealing with extremes because when water arrives in California, it usually arrives in these fantastic storms. So really wanting to make the best use we can of that water. And that includes trying to arrange where we can for some diversions to do aquifer recharge, help those groundwater basins recover, as well as work with our forecasts to understand that when the storm comes and then there is nothing on the horizon, no real hurry to get all that water above that Tampa Conservation Act. You can take a little more time, really try and see if you can make the best use of it. And we'd work in partnership with our federal partners and our local operators of the reservoirs and all these efforts.
That's good to hear. So, looking forward, if the dry trend persists, what implications could, declining reservoir levels have to urban water supplies and our agriculture and environmental flows later this year?
So, if we do end up with a year like 2013 or 2022, both years that started in the first 3 months, almost record wet,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything turned off with the new year.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting actually pretty good because we've had 3 consecutive years where we had pretty good precipitation, snow melt,
Mm-hmm.
and the reservoirs reflect that being above average. Groundwater basins are doing reasonably well. So this summer, likely manage. What will happen as we get to April 1, you get to that peak snowpack reading, find out, boy, it's not what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody be looking ahead to the next water year. What might it be? How do we hedge our bets to get through this season?
Yeah.
To know if this is the first year of a multi-year drought or if it's just dry outcome that can happen with La Niñas.
Right. And I know that, La Niñas can bring, wallop of storms, or sometimes it's dry. It can be fickle as well. And even looking at the pattern, coming into next year, I know that has an effect on everything. So, give the people who are watching this, give them some advice, people who maybe take this for granted and say, oh, it's our water year is perfect. We don't need to worry about it. Do you think people should always be conscious about saving water, and what should they do?
Oh yeah, we like to say keep conservation as a state of mind here in California because we live in a land of extremes, particularly with our weather, where it's either raining buckets or it's in the middle of winter and it's sunny and 80 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And we do know the dry season is dry and likely hot. So by conserving water and having that mindset, you're ready for anything.
Perfect. I think that's great advice for everybody. Dr. Anderson, again, I want to thank you for joining us today and taking your time, and we look forward to speaking with you in the near future.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Riley, really terrific interview with Dr. Anderson there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're watching us right now, you just got a lot smarter learning about our water year and those conditions. Question for you is, out of all that information you heard, what stood out to you the most with your interview with Dr. Anderson?
For me, it was really just talking about looking forward. I think that was one of the things, because moving back here, I'm so concerned that we won't have enough water and the reservoir, we won't, it'll go dry.
Right.
So I think it's nice to hear that we are in good shape, but what could happen going forward? Because I'm always consciously thinking about how to preserve water, be conscious about water, because it's a precious resource.
Yep.
So for me, it's looking forward. And I liked his advice and his knowledge looking forward into the future. What about you?
Right. You don't know if it's going to be a multi-year drought. You never do if that's starting right now or it's just a one-off thing. And like you said, conservation is a state of mind here in California. All right, we're going to be right back in 2 minutes, and we're going to hear from Jean-Pierre. Thanks, Riley. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. So we've been talking about rain, we've been talking about snow, the conditions this year, the outlook in the short term. But let's talk about how this weather has been affecting fitness. For that, we'll turn to forecaster Jean-Pierre Melzer.
Sacramento weather can really impact how we stay active, from cold, foggy mornings like this to hot summer days. I'm here at Lifetime Arden to talk about how does the forecast impact our workout habits, about how weather affects motivation, and how to stay consistent year-round. Let's go. Do you notice people changing their workout habits based on the weather?
I would say 100%. When it is raining, especially in the morning time, we see a lot of I will call them late cancels, but more people who take themselves out of class. I always check my roster before I go to bed, and sometimes I have a full class. I'm like, yes, a waitlisted class, and then I'll wake up and maybe a couple people have dropped out, but I check the weather and it's usually, okay, there's a rainstorm happening right now. People usually don't want to go outside. It's, I would say, more of a safety issue about getting to the gym than it is about going to take the class. There's just a lot of external factors that go into your commute to the gym, especially even now, living in this cloud that we have in the past couple of weeks. It's like, I don't know if it's safe with the heavy fog. So that's what I've noticed as well.
On cold, foggy mornings like today, do you notice people skipping outdoor workouts and choosing indoor options instead?
I would say it takes a special person to still want to go on a run when it's cold and foggy. But I think that also has to do with your discipline and your commitment to your goals. And so the people that are here, I see them as committed to their goals and doing essentially whatever it takes to be able to reach them, being that if they're inside or outside. But I also notice more people are coming inside, especially like since we have golf simulators here. We have a lot of influx of golfers who are coming inside. So I would say the golfers are coming inside. The members who are working out, I think, are still kind of moving things around, but I would say majority of them are coming inside.
What's your advice to someone who sees the fog and feels the cold temperatures and thinks, I'll work out tomorrow?
I would say you probably don't skip out on the endorphins because it's cold outside. Like, you still will get a really good workout no matter what. And I would say even on the days that I feel like I want to skip, I regret not going to do the workout because then I'm like, okay, maybe I go on a run. I don't feel like going on a run. And then I'll see somebody else went on a run and they feel really good. I'm like, dang, I wish I went on a run. So never like think that you shouldn't do it. Even if your mood dictates that you don't want to do it, you should still go and you should still work out because generally those are the days that you do the best and you feel the best afterwards.
What's your busiest month at Lifetime Arden?
Generally is always January, just within gyms, probably January to March is like, okay, I'm gung-ho about my goals. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna start to stick to a routine, and then February comes around and maybe I see results, maybe I haven't, so I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. One more month, and then we sort of start to see it dwindle a little bit, and then summer comes around, and then people like want to get back in the gym because they're going on vacation. So like June, July, August, a little bit more popular, and then it starts to dwindle down again, and then we see maybe a couple people join around the holidays, but they get ahead of the January rush. But January to March, I feel like generally are the busiest months.
Weather can mess with motivation. What do you think helps people stay consistent year-round?
I think your results once you start to see them. Like, it takes a second, and I think when you're not seeing the results like immediately, it's a little disheartening, but the more consistent that you stay and the more you continue to show up. I also think it's your community too. The people that take class with you, the coaches that take you through your class, all of those things factor into whether it's cold, whether I'm sick, whether I am on vacation, all of those things factor into, okay, these are my habits, this is my consistency. Now that I'm seeing results, I'm also noticing I'm becoming stronger. Or you run more, I'm like, oh, I can actually run for more than 5 minutes. Like, I'm noticing things about myself that I didn't know that I could do, and that comes from your discipline and your consistency.
Do group classes or personal training help people push through weather-related excuses?
Yeah, I think because we're your accountability. Because we braved the weather to be here for you too. And so yeah, life happens, things come up. But I always think about it this way when I think about late canceling a class at like 5 a.m. Like, well, that coach is most likely already there and already got up and already thought all the things that I'm thinking about of, nah, I don't want to, or it's too cold, or I could just stay warm. But they didn't because they want to be there for you to be consistent. And so I think if I think about it that way, that gets me out of bed.
Join us next week for part 2 of our conversation discussing how fitness habits change in the hot summer months. Back to you guys.
Wow, I have to say, what great answers and interview this was. It really, it keeps me motivated too.
Right? Don't skip out on those endorphins.
Do not do it.
Don't let that fog get to you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us for Atmospheric Insight this week. We'll see you again next Wednesday.